that okay? We are. Good. I'm afraid I've got to start with some sad and very disappointing news this morning. There's no bad joke. But just to help you overcome your disappointment, we're going to have a bit of audience participation. Oh. Yes. Well, that's about 4 people. I'd like you to just put your hand and your arm, something like that. Can we all do that? Yep. No, this isn't going to be terribly embarrassing, it's okay. And I want you to put your finger and your thumb together in a circle. Hey, we've all got this, it's really good. And then I want you to put it onto your chin, just like this.
Cheek. Not your chin. Cheek.
I said chin. But you all put it on your chin. Actions speak louder than words. It worked. Was there anyone who actually put it on the chin?
Alan thought about it, but did you do it?
Okay, we're continuing with our look at the book of Luke this morning, and we've moved on to chapter 19. If you have your Bibles with you and you'd like to follow this, we're in chapter 19, starting at verse 11. As they heard these things, he proceeded to tell a parable, because he was near to Jerusalem, and because they supposed that the kingdom of God was to appear immediately. He said, therefore, a nobleman went into a far country to receive for himself a kingdom, and then return. Calling 10 of his servants, he gave them 10 minas, and said to them, engage in business until I come. But his citizens hated him, and sent a delegation after him, saying, we do not want this man to reign over us. When he returned, having received the kingdom, he ordered these servants, to whom he had given the money, to be called to him, that he might know what they had gained by doing business. The first came before him, saying, Lord, your mina has made 10 minas more. And he said to him, well done, good servant. Because you have been faithful in a very little, you shall have authority over 10 cities. And the second came, saying, Lord, your mina has made 5 minas. And he said to him, and you are to be over 5 cities. Then another came, saying, Lord, here is your mina, which I kept laid away in a handkerchief, for I was afraid of you, because you are a severe man. You take what you do not deposit, and reap what you did not sow. He said to him, I will condemn you with your own words, you wicked servant. You knew that I was a severe man, taking what I did not deposit, and reaping what I did not sow. Why then did you not put my money in the bank? And on my coming, I might have collected it with interest. He said this to those who stood by, take the mina from him, and give it to the one who has 10 minas. And they said to him, Lord, he has 10 minas. I tell you that to everyone who has, more will be given. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. But as for these enemies of mine, who did not want me to reign over them, bring them here and slaughter them before me. I always get the easy passages. What's this story all about? Well, clearly it's not about 10 coal miners with Davy lamps, picks and shovels. A mina was a Greek coin worth 100 drachma, and a drachma was a labourer's daily wage. So the mina was worth about 3 months' wages. Not a fortune by any means, but a significant sum of money. The precise amount is not really important. There are similarities to this parable and the parable of the talents we find in Matthew 25. But there are sufficient differences to know that this was a separate parable told at a different time. The setting is Jesus and his followers are on their way to Jerusalem. And in a short while to come is the euphoria of the crowds and the triumphal entry. But also to come is the confrontation with the religious leaders, the rigged trial, the desertion by those closest to him, and the crucifixion. But at this time, the disciples and many of the followers mistakenly thought that this was it. This was the moment that Jesus would cast off the hated Roman rule, and the kingdom of God would appear in the form of a restored great Jewish nation, back to its former glory days. And I think Jesus told this story to dispel that notion. We have a number of characters in the parable. We have the nobleman who went away to receive his kingdom, and then he returned. There are the 10 servants who are each given a mina and instructed to engage in business. And then there are the citizens who hated the nobleman. This scenario of a nobleman going off to a far country to be awarded the right to govern might have been familiar to his listeners, and particularly in those times of Roman domination, when a potential ruler may go to Rome to seek their authority. Now, we who live on the other side of the resurrection can understand this in the light of Jesus' ascension and being seated on the right hand of the Father, where he's given authority to rule over both creation and his church. And after some indefinite time, he will return. So in our story, the nobleman receives his kingdom and he returns, and he calls the servants to him so he can question them about how they've fulfilled the task that he set them. But the first servant, as we heard, has done extremely well, and he's increased this money by tenfold. He was duly praised for his diligence and given authority over 10 cities. And the second also did well and received a reward in proportion. The third servant, however, had done nothing other than hide the money away. He stands convicted by his own words. His laziness meant he couldn't even be bothered to bank the money and at least receive some interest. He incurs the anger of the ruler, and what he has is taken away from him. And we hear right at the end, the enemies of the ruler receive severe retribution. So, what can we learn from this passage? Well, one day in the future, and we don't know when because it's not been revealed to us, Jesus will return. We normally term this the second coming, and that's crystal clear from both this passage and from many others. And when he returns, it's equally clear that there will be a day of judgment, a day of reckoning, a day of calling to account when our deeds and actions are examined. Secondly, in the story there are many represented by these citizens who hated the nobleman who don't recognise the authority of Jesus. They're not merely indifferent, they're actively opposed to his rule. And this, of course, was not confined to the religious leaders at the time of Jesus. This has continued down through the centuries and is just as true today as it was then. From being thrown to the lions to Boko Haram, the Islamic State, North Korea, to name a few, there's been opposition and persecution to Christians from many quarters. It shows no sign of letting up and indeed we're even warned to expect it. This is a key point in the story. But let's face it, it makes for uncomfortable reading. This is a tough passage. We normally like to focus on God's fatherly love, his grace and compassion, and that's absolutely right and proper. But it's clear that the consequences of opposition and rebellion are severe. This doesn't mean for a moment that God is cruel or unjust, because he's done himself everything that is possible for us to receive forgiveness, receive his love, receive his grace through the sacrifice on the cross. Nevertheless, the consequences of rejection are stark and final. Also note that the citizens sent a delegation to oppose the nobleman's rule, but they failed in that attempt. And so it will be with the kingdom of God. Nothing can prevent it. It will prevail. So let's look at the servants for a moment. They were loyal to the ruler. They were disciples of Jesus, in other words. Or so it seems. They were given this mina, this something of value, and told to do something with it. As disciples, as followers of Jesus, we too have been given something of value. But I'll suggest it's far greater value than 3 months' pay. We have been given something of immeasurable worth, a pearl of great value, a brilliant, multifaceted diamond that money could not possibly buy. And contrary to our normal instincts, Jesus tells us not to lock away, to hide away, to hoard this great treasure. Put it in a bank or in a vault, a safety deposit box. Perhaps not in Hatton Garden. But we are to show it to everyone we come across. Even those we might regard some of the dodgiest people in society. Now, in the day of Jesus, it was tax collectors like Zacchaeus. And in our day, it's possibly still tax collectors. Or seriously, from the richest fat cats who are chasing wealth to the poorest and most disadvantaged and everyone else in between, we are to reveal this precious gift that we've been given. And that gift, I would suggest, is the gospel, the message of hope and reconciliation, the message of forgiveness, the message of God's love. A new start, a new beginning, even a new life. To be filled with the Spirit, to become real human beings. We are asked to surrender everything, and yet we gain everything. These aren't pious, empty words, or rules for living a good life. But a reality if we will only embrace and accept the love of God. People make all sorts of promises and often fail to keep them. Jesus makes promises and always keeps them. So, we have the ruler, who is Jesus. We know the ruler will return. We have the people in opposition, and their prospects are good. We have the mina, the thing of value. So let's look a little closer at the servants. They're there to serve the king. And there's an expectation that the servants will follow the wishes of the king. 2 of them do so, and are warmly praised and rewarded, which suggests that being a follower of Jesus puts an obligation on us to actively work for the kingdom of God. We were never meant to be social members only, enjoying the benefits, yet without making a contribution. It also implies that in the kingdom to come, we're not lazily wafted around on clouds, practicing our harp-playing technique. There will be work to do, and the responsibilities given will be in some kind of proportion to our service to the kingdom in this life. The person who's worked diligently for the gospel has blessed others and also himself. He or she has become richer as God pours out his blessings. And the person who's neglected his duty becomes poorer and poorer. Christian service becomes an obligation and a chore. So the servant who hid his money away turned out to be no real follower of Jesus at all and receives no credit for it. He's a nominal Christian for whom their stated belief does not result in action. And the faithful servant. There was humility. Lord, your mina has made 10 minas more. Not look at what I've done, haven't I done well? But rather, I had nothing until you gave it to me. It's true that in business that trying to make a profit from an investment involves taking risks. The greater the risk, the greater the potential return, but the greater the potential losses. And these servants were working amongst hostile citizens in a difficult circumstances. They were taking risks, and maybe so should you and I. When we reveal our precious gem of the gospel, some will simply refuse to look. Some will declare it a fake. But some will be entranced at its brilliance, and they will want to know more. We are uniquely privileged because the truth has been revealed to us. And we also have a duty, an obligation, a calling, a great commission, call it whatever you will, to put our faith into action and share the gospel of Christ in this place, because people are perishing. If you and I, to whom the truth has been revealed, fail to share it, and if through internal squabbling about trivial issues we become a barrier to the gospel, if people are perishing and we stand around arguing about the colour of the shroud, we will be called to account. So let us be true to our calling and our mission, and let us long to hear those words of blessing. Well done, good servant.